Liu Pei seeks shelter with Liu Paio. TsʻAo lost no time in taking advantage of Yuan Shao's flight, but smote hard at the retreating men. Yuan Shao, without helmet or proper dress, and with few followers, crossed hastily to the north bank at Liang. He was met by his general, Chiang I-Chu, who took him in and comforted him, and listened to the tale of misfortunes. Next Chiang called in the scattered remnants of the army, and when the soldiers heard that their old lord was alive, they swarmed to him like ants, so that he quickly became strong enough to attempt the march to TsʻAo. Soon the army set out and at night halted at Huang Hills. That evening, sitting in his tent, Shao seemed to hear a far-off sound of lamentation. He crept out quietly to listen and found it was his own soldiers telling each other tales of woe. This one lamented an elder brother lost, that one grieved for his younger brother abandoned, a third mourned a companion missing, a fourth, a relative cut off. And each beat his breast and wept, and all said, had he but listened to Tien Feng we had not met this disaster. And Yuan Shao, very remorseful, said, I did not hearken unto Tien Feng, and now my men have been beaten and I was nearly lost. How can I return and look him in the face? Next day the march was resumed, and he met Feng Kai with reinforcements, to whom he said, I disregarded Tien Feng's advice, and have brought myself to defeat. Now shall I be greatly ashamed to look him in the face. This tribute to Tien Feng's prescience roused the jealousy of Feng Kai, who replied, Yes. When he heard the news of your defeat, though he was a prisoner, he clapped his hands for joy and said, Indeed, just as I foretold. How dare he laugh at me, the blockhead? Assuredly he shall die, said Yuan. Whereupon he wrote a letter, and sent therewith a sword to slay the prisoner. Meanwhile Tien's jailer came to him one day saying, Above all men I felicitate you. What is the joyful occasion and why felicitate? Said Tien Feng. The jailer replied, General Yuan has been defeated and is on his way back. He will treat you with redoubled respect. Now am I a dead man, said Tien. Why say you that, sir, when all men give you joy? The general appears liberal, but he is jealous and forgetful of honest advice. Had he been victorious, he might have pardoned me. Now that he has been defeated and put to shame, I may not hope to live. But the jailer did not believe him. Before long came the letter and the sword with the fatal order. The jailer was dismayed, but the victim said, I knew all too well that I should have to die. The jailer wept. Tien Feng said, An able man born into this world who does not recognize and serve his true lord is ignorant. Today I die, but I am not deserving of pity. Whereupon he committed suicide in the prison. Chu Shu but yesterday was killed. Tien ends his life, his fate fulfilled. Hopai's main beams break one by one, mourn ye that house. Its day is done. Thus died Tien Feng, pitied of all who heard of his fate. When Yuan Shao came home, it was with troubled mind and distorted thoughts. He could not attend to the business of government and became so ill that his wife, who came of the Liu family, besought him to make his last dispositions. Now 3 sons had been born to him, Tian the eldest, who was commander at TsʻAo, Hsi, who ruled over Yuchu, and Shang, born to him by his second wife, who still lived. This youngest son was very handsome and noble-looking, and his father's favorite, so he was kept at home. After the defeat at Quantu, the lad's mother was constantly urging that her son should be named as successor, and Shao called together 4 of his counselors to consider this matter. These 4 happened to be divided in their sympathies, Sharon Pa and Feng Kai being in favor of the youngest son, and Sin Ping and Qo supporters of the eldest. When they met to consult, Yuan Shao said, As there is naught but war and trouble outside our borders, it is necessary that tranquility within be early provided for, and I wish to appoint my successor. My eldest son is hard and cruel, my second is mild and unfit. The third has the outward form of a hero, appreciates the wise and is courteous to his subordinates. I wish him to succeed, but I would that you tell me your opinions. Quotu said, Tian is your firstborn, and he is in a position of authority beyond your control. If you pass over the eldest in favor of the youngest, you sow the seeds of turbulence. The prestige of the army has been somewhat lowered, and enemies are on our border. Should you add to our weakness by making strife between father and son, elder and younger brothers? Rather consider how the enemy may be repulsed and turn to the question of the airship later. Then the natural hesitation of Yuan Shao asserted itself, and he could not make up his mind. Soon came news that his sons, Tian and Hsi, and his nephew, Cao Can, were coming with large armies to help him, and he turned his attention to preparations for fighting TsʻAo. When TsʻAo drew up his victorious army on the banks of the Yellow River, a certain aged native brought an offering of food and sauce to bid him welcome. His venerable and hoary appearance led TsʻAo to treat him with the highest respect, and he invited him to be seated and said to him, "Venerable sir, what may be your age?" "I am nearly 100, replied the ancient. "I should be very sorry if my men had disturbed your village," said TsʻAo. In the days of the Emperor Yüan, a yellow star was seen over by way of Chu and sung in the southwest. A certain man of Liaodong, Yin Kui, who was learned in astrology, happened to be passing the night here, and he told us that the star foretold the arrival in these parts, 50 years hence, of a true and honest man from Lion and Pa. Lo, that is exactly 50 years ago. Now Yuan parent Chu is very hard on the people and they hate him. You, sir, having raised this army in the cause of humanity and righteousness, out of pity for the people and to punish crimes, and having destroyed the hordes of Yuan Shao at Quantu, just fulfill the prophecy of Yin Kui, and the millions of the land may look now for tranquility. How dare I presume that I am he, said TsʻAo with a smile. Wine was served and refreshments brought in, and the old gentleman was sent away with presents of silk stuffs. And an order was issued to the army that if anyone killed so much as a fowl or a dog belonging to the villagers, he should be punished as for murder. And the soldiers obeyed with fear and trembling, while TsʻAo rejoiced in his heart. It was told TsʻAo that the total army from the 4 prefectures under the Yuan family amounted to 23 legions, and they were camped at TsangTiang. TsʻAo then advanced nearer them and made a strong camp. Soon after, the two armies were arrayed over against each other. On one side, TsʻAo rode to the front surrounded by his captains, and on the other appeared Yuan Shao supported by his 3 sons, his nephew and his officers. TsʻAo spoke first. "Parent Chu, your schemes are poor, your strength is exhausted, why still refuse to think of surrender? Are you waiting till the sword shall be upon your neck? Then it will be too late." Yuan Shao turned to those about him saying, "Who dares go out?" His son Shang was anxious to exhibit his prowess in the presence of his father, so he flourished his pair of swords and rode forth. TsʻAo pointed him out to his officers and asked if anyone knew him, and they replied that he was the youngest son. Before they had finished speaking, from their own side rode out one Shi Huan, armed with a spear. The 2 champions fought a little while, and suddenly Shang whipped up his horse, made a feint and fled. His opponent followed. Yuan Shang took his bow, fitted an arrow, turned in his saddle and shot at Shi Huan, wounding him in the left eye. He fell from the saddle and died on the spot. Yuan Shao, seeing his son thus get the better of his opponent, gave the signal for attack, and the whole army thundered forward. The onslaught was heavy, but presently the gongs on both sides sounded the retire, and the battle ceased. When he had returned to camp, TsʻAo took counsel to find a plan to overcome Yuan Shao. Then TsʻAo proposed the plan of the 10 ambushes and persuaded TsʻAo to retire upon the river, placing men in ambush as he went. Thus would Shao be inveigled into pursuit as far as the river, when TsʻAo's men would be forced to make a desperate stand or be driven into the water. TsʻAo accepted this suggestion and told off 5 companies to lie in ambush on one side of the road of retreat and 5 on the other, while Hsu commanded the advanced front. Next day the 10 companies started first and placed themselves right and left as ordered. In the night, TsʻAo ordered the advanced front to feign an attack on the camp, which roused all the enemy in all their camps. This done, Hsu retreated, and the Shao army came in pursuit. The roar of battle went on without cessation, and at dawn TsʻAo's army rested on the river and could retreat no farther. Then TsʻAo shouted, "There is no road in front, so all must fight to the death." The retreating army turned about and advanced vigorously. Hsu simply flew to the front, smote and killed a half-score captains, and threw Yuan Shao's army into confusion. They tried to turn and march back, but TsʻAo was close behind. Then the drums of the enemy were heard and right, and left there appeared a company, 1 pair of the ambushed parties. Yuan Shao collected about him his 3 sons and his nephew, and they were enabled to cut their way out and flee. 10 li further on they fell into another ambush, and here many men were lost, so that their corpses lay over the countryside, and the blood filled the watercourses. Another 10 li, and they met the 3rd pair of companies barring their road. Here they lost heart and bolted for an old camp of their own that was near, and bade their men prepare a meal. But just as the food was ready to eat down came Chang Liu and Chang Ho and burst into the camp. Yuan Shao mounted and fled as far as TsʻAo when he was tired and his steed spent. But there was no rest, for TsʻAo came in close pursuit. It seemed now a race for life. But presently Shao found his onward course again blocked, and he groaned aloud. "If we do not make most desperate efforts we are all captives," said he, and they plunged forward. His 2nd son and his nephew were wounded by arrows, and most of his men were dead or had disappeared. He gathered his sons into his arms and wept bitterly. Then he fell into a swoon. He was picked up, but his mouth was full of blood which ran forth in a bright scarlet stream. He sighed, saying, "Many battles have I fought, and little did I think to be driven to this. Heaven is afflicting me. You had better return each to his own, and swear to fight this TsʻAo to the end." Then he bade Hsin and Quotu as quickly as possible follow Yuan Tian to his district, and prepare to give battle to the enemy lest he should invade. Yuan Hsi was told to go to Yuchu, and Cao Can to Pingchu. So each started to prepare men and horses for repulsing TsʻAo. Yuan Shao with his youngest son, and the remnant of his officers went away to Chichu, and military operations were suspended for a time. Meanwhile TsʻAo was distributing rewards to his army for the late victory, and his men were scouting all about Chichu. He soon learned that Yuan Shao was ill, and that his youngest son and Sharon Pa were in command of the city, while his brothers and cousin had returned each to his own. TsʻAo's advisers were in favor of a speedy attack, but he objected, saying, "Chichu is large and well supplied. Sharon Pa is an able strategist, and it behoves me to be careful. I would rather wait till the autumn when the crops have been gathered in so that the people will not suffer." While the attack was being talked over there, came letters from Hsun saying that Liu Pei was strengthening himself at Junan, and when he had heard that TsʻAo was going to attack Chichu, he had said he would take the opportunity to march on the capital, wherefore the minister would do well to hasten homeward to defend it. This news disconcerted TsʻAo. He left TsʻAo hung in command on the river bank, with orders to maintain the appearance of strength there, while he led the main part of his army to meet the threatened attack from Junin. It has to be said now that Liu Pei, his brothers and supporters, having gone forth with the intention of attacking the capital, had reached a point near Jiang Hills when TsʻAo came upon them. So Liu Pei camped by the hills and divided his army into three, sending his brothers with one division each to entrench themselves southeast and southwest, respectively, of the main body which he and Yuan commanded. When TsʻAo came near, Yuan beat his drums and went out to where TsʻAo had already arrayed his men. TsʻAo called Liu Pei to a parley, and when the latter appeared under his great standard, TsʻAo pointed his whip at him and railed, saying, "I treated you as a guest of the highest consideration. Why then do you turn your back on righteousness and forget kindness?" Yuan replied, "Under the name of minister you are really a rebel. I am a direct descendant of the family, and I have a secret decree from the throne to take such offenders as you." As he said these words, he produced and recited the decree, which is known as the Girdle Mandate. TsʻAo grew very angry and ordered HSU to go out to battle, and as Liu Pei's champion, outrode Yuan with spear ready to thrust. The two warriors exchanged 30 bouts without advantage to either. Then there arose an earth-rending shout, and up came the two brothers, Yuan from the southeast and Fei from the southwest. The three armies then began a great attack, which proved too much for TsʻAo's men, fatigued by a long march, and they were worsted and fled. Yuan having scored this victory, returned to camp. Next day he sent out Yuan again to challenge the enemy, but it was not accepted, and TsʻAo's army remained 10 days without movement. Then Chang Fei offered a challenge which also was not accepted, and Yuan began to feel anxious. Then unexpectedly came news that the enemy had stopped a train of supplies, and at once Chang Fei went to the rescue. Worse still was the news that followed, that an army had got in behind to attack Junin. Quite dismayed, Yuan said, "If this be true, I have enemies in front and rear and have no place to go." He then sent Yuan to try to recover the city, and thus both his brothers were absent from his side. One day later a horseman rode up to say Junin had fallen, its defender Liu Pei was a fugitive and Yuan surrounded. To make matters worse, the news came that Chang Fei, who had gone to rescue Kung Tu, was in like case. Yuan tried to withdraw his men, fearing all the time an attack from TsʻAo. Suddenly, the sentinels came in saying HSU was at the camp gate offering a challenge, but no one dared accept it or go out. They waited till dawn, and then Yuan bade the soldiers get a good meal and be ready to start. When ready, the foot went out first, the horsemen next, leaving a few men in the camp to beat the watches and maintain an appearance of occupation. After traveling a short distance they passed some mounds. Suddenly torches blazed out, and on the summit stood one who shouted, "Do not let Liu Pei run away. I, the minister, am here awaiting him." Liu Pei dashed along the first clear road he saw. Yuan said, "Fear not, my lord, only follow me." And setting his spear he galloped in front, opening a lane as he went. Yuan gripped his double sword and followed close. As they were winning through, HSU came in pursuit and engaged Yuan, and 2 other companies bore down as well. Seeing the situation so desperate, Yuan plunged into the wilds and fled. Gradually the sounds of battle became fainter and died away while he went deeper and deeper into the hills, a single horseman fleeing for his life. He kept on his way till daybreak, when a company suddenly appeared beside the road. Yuan saw these men with terror at first, but was presently relieved to find they were led by the friendly Liu Pei. They were a company of his defeated men escorting the family of their chief. With them also were Sun Qin, Qin Yang and Mai Fang. They told him that the attack on their city had been too strong to be resisted, and so they had been compelled to abandon the defense, that the enemy had followed them, and only Quan's timely arrival had saved them. "I do not know where my brother is," said Liu Pei. "All will come right if you will push on," said Liu Pei. They pushed on. Before they had gone far, the beating of drums was heard, and suddenly appeared Chang Ho with a company of soldiers. He cried, "Liu Pei, quickly dismount and surrender." Yuan was about to retire when he saw a red flag waving from a rampart on the hills, and down came rushing another body of men under Cao Lan. Thus checked in front and his retreat cut off, Yuan looked up to heaven and cried, "O heaven, why am I brought to this state of misery? Nothing is left me now but death," and he drew his sword to slay himself. But Liu Pei stayed his hand, saying, "Let me try to fight a way out and save you." As he spoke, Cao Lan's force was on the point of engaging his. The two leaders met, and in the third bout Liu Pei was cut down. Liu Pei at once rushed up to fight, but just then there was sudden confusion in the rear ranks of the opponents, and a warrior dashed up and thrust at Cao Lan with his spear. Cao Lan fell from his steed. The newcomer was Yuan. His arrival was most opportune. He urged forward his steed, thrusting right and left, and the enemy's ranks broke and scattered. Then the first force under Chang Ho came into the fight, and the leader and Yuan fought 30 or more bouts. However, this proved enough, for Ho turned his horse away, recognizing that he was worsted. Yuan vigorously attacked, but was forced into a narrow space in the hills where he was hemmed in. While seeking for some outlet, they saw Yuan Xiechang, Quan Piying, and Chu Ts'Ao with 300 men coming along. Soon Chang Ho was driven off, and then they came out of the narrow defile and occupied a strong position among the hills, where they made a camp. Yuan sent Yuan Xiechang for news of the missing brother, Chang Fei. He had been attacked by TsʻAo Yuan, but had vigorously resisted, beaten him off, and followed him up. Then Yo Qin had come along and surrounded Chang Fei. In this pass he was found by Yuan Xiechang, who had heard of his plight from some of his scattered men met on the way. Now they drove off the enemy. The two brothers returned. Soon they heard of the approach of a large body of TsʻAo's army. Yuan then bade Sun Xieching guard his family and sent him on ahead, while he and the others kept off the enemy, sometimes giving battle and anon marching. Seeing that Yuan was retiring, TsʻAo let him go and left the pursuit. When Yuan collected his men, he found they numbered only 1,000, and this halting and broken force marched as fast as possible to the west. Coming to a river, they asked the natives its name and were told it was the Han, and near it Yuan made a temporary camp. When the local people found out who was in the camp, they presented flesh and wine. A feast was given upon a sandy bank of the Han. After they had drunk a while, Yuan addressed his faithful followers, saying, "All you, fair sirs, have talents fitting you to be advisors to a monarch, but your destiny has led you to follow poor me. My fate is distressful and full of misery. Today I have not a spot to call my own, and I am indeed leading you astray. Therefore I say you should abandon me and go to some illustrious lord, where you may be able to become famous." At these words they all covered their faces and wept. Yuan Xiechang said, "Brother, you are wrong to speak thus. When the great founder of Han contended with Xiang Yu, he was defeated many times, but he won at Chi'Li Hill, and that achievement was the foundation of a dynasty that endured for 4 centuries. Victory and defeat are but ordinary events in a soldier's career, and why should you give up? Success and failure both have their seasons," said Sun Xieching, "and we are not to grieve. Qingchu, which your illustrious relative Liu Paiao commands, is a rich and prosperous country. Liu Paiao is of your house, why not go to him? "Only that I fear he may not receive me," said Liu Pei. "Then let me go and prepare the way. I will make Liu Qinghsing come out to his borders to welcome you." So with his lord's approval, Sun Ch set off immediately and hastened to Qingchu. When the genuflections and ceremonies of greeting were over, Liu Pio asked the reason of the visit. Said Sun, "The princely Liu is one of the heroes of the day, although just at the moment he may lack soldiers and leaders. His mind is set upon restoring the dynasty to its pristine glory, and at Junin the two commanders, Liu and Kung, though bound to him by no ties, were content to die for the sake of his ideals. You, illustrious sir, like Liu Pei, are a scion of the imperial stock. Now the princely one has recently suffered defeat and thinks of seeking a home in the east with son Chengmu, son Yuan. I have ventured to dissuade him, saying that he should not turn from a relative and go to a mere acquaintance, telling him that you, sir, are well known as courteous to the wise and condescending to scholars, so that they flock to you as the waters flow to the east, and that certainly you would show kindness to one of the same ancestry. Wherefore he has sent me to explain matters and request your commands." "He is my brother," said Pio, "and I have long desired to see him, but no opportunity has occurred. I should be very happy if he would come." Ts'Ai Mao, who was sitting by, here broke in with, "No, no." Liu Pei first followed Lu Pu, then he served TsʻAo, and next he joined himself to Yuan Shao. And he stayed with none of these, so that you can see what manner of man he is. If he come here, TsʻAo will assuredly come against us and fight. Better cut off this messenger's head and send it as an offering to TsʻAo, who would reward you well for the service." Sun Ch sat unmoved while this harangue was pronounced, saying at the end, "I am not afraid of death. Liu, the princely one, is true and loyal to the state, and so out of sympathy with Lu Pu, or TsʻAo, or Yuan Shao. It is true he followed these three, but there was no help for it. Now he knows your chief is a member of the family, so that both are of the same ancestry, and that is why he has come far to join him. How can you slander a good man like that?" Liu Pio bade Ts'Ao be silent and said, "I have decided, and you need say no more." Whereat Ts'Ai sulkily left the audience chamber. Then Sun Ch was told to return with the news that Yuan would be welcome, and Prefect Liu Pio went 30 li beyond his boundaries to meet his guest. When Yuan arrived, he behaved to his host with the utmost politeness, and was warmly welcomed in return. Then Liu Pei introduced his two sworn brothers and friends, and they entered Qingchu, where Liu Pei finally was lodged in the prefect's own residence. As soon as Ts'Ao knew whither his enemy had gone, he wished to attack Liu Pio, but Yu advised against any attempt so long as Yuan Shao, the dangerous enemy, was left with power to inflict damage. He advised return to the capital to refresh the men, so that they might be ready for a campaign in the mild spring weather. Ts'Ao accepted his advice and set out for the capital. In the first month of the 8th year of the period, established tranquility. Ts'Ao once again began to think of war, and sent to garrison Junin as a precaution against Liu Pio. Then, after arranging for the safety of the capital, he marched a large army to Quantu, the camp of the year before. As to Yuan Shao, who had been suffering from blood spitting but was now in better health, he began to think of measures against Suru, but Sharon Pa dissuaded him, saying, "You are not yet recovered from the fatigues of last year. It would be better to make your position impregnable and set to improving the army." When the news of Ts'Ao's approach arrived, Yuan said, "If we allow the foe to get close to the city before we march to the river, we shall have missed our opportunity. I must go out to repel this army." Here his son interposed, "Father, You are not sufficiently recovered for a campaign and should not go so far. Let me lead the army against this enemy." Yuan consented, and he sent to CA Qingqiu and Yuqiu and Pingqiu to call upon his other 2 sons, and his nephew to attack TsʻAo at the same time as his own army. Against Junin they beat the drum, and from CA Chichu the armies come, to whom the victory will be seen in the next chapter.